Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Last time we left off, we were here. The Germans had just launched Operation Barbarossa and are now invading the Soviet Union. And this is showing a successful attack from the Soviet Air Force. We're now on to the capital of White Russia falls to Germans. June 30th. 1941, and I will warn you before I fully go over these pages, viewer discretion is advised. I shouldn't say it all the time, but sometimes these pictures aren't so bad. I think now that we're in the Soviet Union, they're going to get pretty bad. So, if you guys are a little squeamish, I mean, these pictures are black and white, so it's not as graphic, but if you guys don't want to see graphic content or things like that, I would say maybe not watch this one. But if you are okay with seeing it, then thanks for sticking around. We'll now go back to the words, and then we'll get to these pictures. Minsk falls to the advancing Nona Germans. The most successful of the German thrusts into Russia was that it was in the central sector, which was directed against Moscow. Here was fought one of the greatest tank battles of the war, in which more than 4,000 tanks took part. On June 26th, the enemy succeeded in breaking through the Russian defenses and 4 days later announced the capture of Minsk. The Russian plan of campaign was to allow the enemy mechanized spearheads to penetrate their lines without offering resistances, and then close the gap, thereby isolating the fighting vehicles from their supporting infantry. By this means, the Russians during the first week of the war claimed to have destroyed 2,500 tanks and to have taken more than 30,000 prisoners. The pictures show above left tank entering Minsk along a street of burnt and blown up buildings. Below, tanks in the center of the town. Right, a Russian father fugitive from the Germans waits with his child in his arms as his wife lies exhausted on the pavement. So here we see tanks entering Minsk. And here we see them in the center of town now. And obviously, yeah, there's the swastika. Yeah, the Russians, a lot of their claims probably not true. The Germans just annihilate them at the beginning of this. Some of their claims could be partially true, but yeah, the Soviets would potentially lie because they don't want the world and even their own people to know how badly they get battered here. They get battered pretty hard. The official number of deaths in the Soviet Union is not even, a lot of people don't even think it's correct. I think they said it was like 8 million or something along those lines is what the official Soviet tally was. But modern estimates are somewhere close to 16 million, which is just absurd. It is that amount of death, both civilian and soldier, it's absurd. But yeah, here we see that father waiting with his child as the mother sleeps. And yeah, obviously, I thought this picture was something else. And I'll show you why I thought that. If you see how she's laying, I thought that was her head, and it was just like heavily disfigured. But no, she's just sleeping. She's a little exhausted. Thankfully, I thought I was gonna have to watch as a father showed, hey, look, there's mom. A famous biblical city falls to the Anzacs, July 3rd, 1941. Palmyra is occupied. British and Free French troops began to close in on the ruined desert city of Palmyra. Okay, you guys know what I'm trying to say. On the 26th of June, the city important because of its position on the oil pipeline to Tripoli, was stubbornly defended by Vichy troops and hired Arab snipers, who, however, were forced to retire, and on July 3rd, the Allied troops marched in. Above, a Bren gun is seen among the ruins of the old Roman colonnade. Colonnade? Sure. The crew is hastily alighting to deal with any pocket resistance that remains. Yeah, just look at the difference in history here. And obviously, we'll get this again when they invade Italy, but, like, look at this. This is modern Bren gun thing, modern troops, and in the background, ancient buildings. It's just crazy. Russian tanks hit back at the advancing Germans. July 1941. Russia, too, has its panzer divisions. The USSR, who had for years been mechanizing its army with an eye on a possible German attack, met the onslaught of the panzer divisions with an armored force in no way inferior to that of its attacker. The pictures show above Red Army tanks moving up to the front through heavily wooded country. They are camouflaged with branches of trees to safeguard them against observation or bombing attacks. Below, Russian officers of a tank column conferring at the front. There we see the Russian tanks. You know, they said that they have trees and stuff like that, so they're hidden. That's not very hidden. Just saying. Put a little bit more effort into it. That one potentially is a little bit more. It's actually on the gun emplacement. I don't know why this one doesn't have that. That's really weird. And there we see the Soviet leaders conferring on where they should go. Give me a second. I have to turn this page. Just making sure before I get into it. Yep. Okay. Germans advanced in White Russia. The Berancina is crushed. July 3rd to 5th, 1941. The shock troops push on. The non-German drive in the Minsk sector reached the Berancina River at several points on July 3rd, but it was not until several days later that the enemy effected a crossing. The picture shows German advance units preparing to force a crossing of the river by means of rafts. The blazing buildings on the banks have been set to fire by the retreating Russians, who destroyed everything that could be of any possible use to the enemy, before falling back to defensive lines that had been prepared in advance. This policy prevented the enemy from living on the land and taxed their lines to the utmost. There we see the Russian buildings burning, and the Germans preparing to cross the river by any means necessary. They were going to get across these rivers. Nothing was going to stop them at this point. And the tactic that the Russians use, obviously, as the burning buildings may imply, is called scorched earth. It was the idea of basically make sure that the enemy has nothing, and they have to draw out their supply lines on and on and on and on. And then when they're so weakened by stretched out supply lines and things like that, attack, and then basically you should be able to crush them. And the Russians, they are pretty confident in this because they did it before with another great conqueror Funny Mustache Man is, a lot of people don't like him. He's technically a great conqueror. He conquers a lot of Europe. But another great conqueror, which is Napoleon, when he invades Russia, his supply lines, they just do the same thing. They run away, they scorch earth, back and back and back and back until he gets all the way to Moscow and his supply lines are stretched out, and then it snows and he's screwed. The Soviets are going to try to do the same thing here, basically. And the Germans aren't going to have as much luck as Mr. Bonaparte. Syria comes under control of Allied armies. June 12th, 1941. Cease firing sounded. Hostilities in Syria ended at midnight on July 12th to 13th after a 5-week campaign, the course of which is shown on the map. The map is to the right. I will show you guys that when we get to it. On that day, General Dent's, plenipotentiaries signed at Acre? I would pronounce it Acre, but I don't believe that is correct. If anyone knows, let me know in the comments. The armistice terms offered them by the Free French and British commanders. These terms had been transmitted to Vichy via Washington on the 11th, but had been rejected on the grounds that it was impossible for the French government to negotiate with the followers of General de Gaulle. General Dent, however, and as commander on the spot, was given a free hand to decide whether or not to continue hostilities. In the lower picture, the Vichy envoy is seen leaving British Forward Divisional headquarters and after having discussed armistice terms with the British commander. Above, General Sir Henry Wilson, with Free French General Carteau on his right, is seen signing the treaty on behalf of Great Britain. More than 1,000 British troops were either killed or wounded in the campaign. So here we see the Free French Vichy envoy leaving. And, the French, and here we see them signing the peace right there. But yeah, the Vichy France would see, obviously, Free France as rebellious, That's why they couldn't sign it, because, one, they were puppets of Germany, and Germany was not going to allow Free France to live, basically. They wanted them gone. And also, if, let's say the Vichy did prefer what their new arrangements were, Free France would be seen as a rebel, basically a rebel alliance, and they wouldn't allow that, They just would go against their government. Here we see the advancement through all of this. So we're going to go start over here. The ladder of Tyre. Then we're going to go to Tyre. And we're going to go up. Allied forces crossed the Litania River on the 9th, which is that river right here. French destroyers driven off by British Navy on June 11th. Sedan occupied by British troops on the 15th of June. Sedan bombarded by British Navy on June 15th as well. British troops occupied Damour on July 9th, which is that little town right there. Ceasefire sounded midnight, July 12th to 13th. And then up here in Beirut, Allied troops entered Beirut July 15th. And then we have a few more attacks this way as well. We have one to Kunitara. I don't know what that says. RAF shot down several German aircraft June 14th. 3 Allied columns near Damascus, June 14th. British troops entered suburbs of Damascus, June 19th. And then they went on to Damascus. Damascus occupied by Free French troops, June 22nd. But yeah, we can see the 3 columns here. So we have first column. I don't actually know how they would have been named at the battlefield, because it's not really told here. But we're going to go with this one we're going to go from right to left. So this is first column, this is the second column, and this is the third column. The third column, I believe, is the French. And then the first 2 columns are the British. But it says Allied troops entered Syria from Transjordan, June 8th. Allied troops seized Daria, June 9th. And then they go up. And then British troops entered, and then that's this one. This one. But yeah. And then here is a map here's a more wide map, you could say. But yeah, very interesting stuff. I always like seeing these maps. It's very, very nice. Alright, well, that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I can improve on. I always appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.